I hope so. This is of course a drugs war with Venezuela, and President Trump is incredibly frustrated by drugs making their way into the US via Venezuela. And he takes the drugs issue really seriously, Patrick. Of course, he doesn't even drink alcohol, President Trump. And he said in that conversation I had with him, that interview for GB News, where he said, I don't drink, and I've told my kids, you never drink, you never smoke, you never do drugs. He feels really strongly about this issue, so he's taking some pretty drastic action. So we'll be looking at how far he's going to take that as well this evening. Patrick, and by the way, lovely haircut.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you.
So I will take it from here. This is The Late Show Live. See you, mate. On The Late Show Live tonight.
Let me start with an apology. A link to our economic and fiscal outlook document went live on our website too early this morning and was subsequently removed. We apologise to the Chancellor, members of Parliament for this technical error.
So tonight, Rachel Reeves' job as Chancellor is still on the line. That might have been the fall guy, the head of the OBR, Richard Hughes, but the question over her future in number 11 has not gone away. Also tonight.
I am clear that no transformation today carries greater consequence than the rise of China. It is a nation of immense scale, ambition and ingenuity.
China is apparently a national security threat. That's according to Sir Keir Starmer, who was speaking at the Guildhall tonight. But his speech was also quite complimentary about the Chinese. So does the Prime Minister have a clue about handling Beijing? And once again, this evening, our British troops are in court and the public eye over their conduct during the war. This time, Afghanistan. Meanwhile, President Trump is assessing the visas of all Afghan migrants, even those who worked for the US during the conflict. Does this sum up how different our two countries really are? Plus, this man was arrested in the UK because of this picture. It was taken in Florida. Is it another example of police overreach? He's going to be joining me to tell me the story very soon. We'll also be tackling tomorrow's front pages as the ink dries and breaking the news before it becomes news. We are, of course, live in Washington, just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories that America is talking about and that matter to Britain too, including this. Is America on the brink of war with Venezuela? Tonight, Donald Trump is hosting a crunch meeting on the next steps. Something that we have just heard is that the president has given its leader, Maduro, until Friday to leave the country. We'll bring you the latest lines from the meeting.
3, 2, 1, go Samuel!
Who did it better, the Starmers or the Trumps? We're going to be discussing whose Christmas lights are just that bit classier. I'm Bev Turner, this is The Late Show Live, and our night is just getting started. Very good evening. So, Rachel Reeves is fighting for her life tonight. Earlier, the head of the Office for Budget Responsibility, Richard Hughes, resigned after the budget was published before the Chancellor made her fiscal announcement this week. But it hasn't fended off the critics. Tonight, Nigel Farage has said the wrong person has resigned, whilst the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, has accused Mr Hughes of being her human shield. Well, the newspapers are pretty unanimous with their coverage tonight. The Mail says that the OBR boss is the fall guy for Reeves's budget lies, whilst the Telegraph says that she is clinging on to her job. So with me now is Stuart Thompson, political advisor and author. Stuart, thank you very much for joining me. Now, does it look like Richard Hughes has fallen on his sword to protect the government?
No, I think as soon as that document went out, you know, half an hour, 40 minutes before the Chancellor gave her speech, frankly, it was always going to be very difficult for the boss of the OBR to stick around. And I think they did look at it very quickly. They had the independent review, but it seems, from what I've seen, pretty conclusive that some mistakes on the IT side, and I won't try to explain what they are in my very limited knowledge of these things. But it seemed to be, so much the case that it was at the OBR's door that he had no choice. So this is, for me, a sort of different issue entirely from the wider discussion about the Chancellor's, the amount of information she revealed or didn't reveal, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But I think the OBR issue is and the release of the report is separate.
And when they say an IT issue, do you feel, Stuart, that's sufficiently explanatory? What does that mean? It sounds to me like maybe their AI system misfired in some way and something went out on a timer that shouldn't have done. What do you think might have happened?
No, well, look, I say I'm no IT expert, so I'm not going to pretend to understand these things. But I believe there were various plugins on the WordPress site that they were using, which sort of bypassed one of the systems. So no, it seems to be a proper IT mistake rather than pressing publish early or something along those sort of lines, which my brain could probably cope with and understand. But this is a bit more technical than that.
It's just another example, though, isn't it, Stuart, of broken Britain and everything. Nothing works. We can't even get this right. Now, she is kind of clinging on, they say, to her job. But how serious is it really? Like, I, for one, have no faith that anyone is actually going to step aside in the aftermath of this.
Well, look, I mean, again, I think there's two separate issues. One is the OBR and the releasing of the document early, which, seems, that's bad. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that's a massive understatement. But that's being dealt with. The other issues which she's being accused of around, not providing full information. I think this is just politics. This is the nature of political decision making. Is how much you actually reveal in advance, so that when you make a speech, whether it's a party conference, whether it's a King's speech, whether it's a budget, a comprehensive spending review, we want our politicians to make decisions and come forward with very clear policies. And that's what she did in the budget. Now, you can have a separate conversation about whether you think those are the policies are the right ones to lead the country forward and deliver growth. I happen to think they will, but others will, quite vehemently disagree with that, I am sure. But that's what we want politicians to do. We want politicians to make decisions, to make it some sort of, managerial exercise where you simply release all the information in advance and people can sort of, etch a sketch their own policy in advance is not how it happens. This is politics. This is government. This is difficult. And it's about decisions.
OK, Stuart, thank you so much. Stuart Thompson there, political advisor and author. I've got my guests in the studio with me this evening, political commentator Thomas Corbett-Dillon and former Obama policy advisor Laurie Watkins are here with me. Good evening to you both. Just before we do this, good Thanksgiving weekend?
Great weekend.
Lovely?
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. Always fun to be with the Americans.
Always fun to be with. I went to the zoo.
You did?
Yep, but apparently it was too cold for all the animals to be outside, so I didn't get to see a huge amount. But the pandas, which are apparently a symbol of soft diplomacy in this town, isn't that right?
That's right, they're on loan from China. And if you upset the Chinese, they take the pandas away, which they did in 2023, so... And
they arrived in the 1970s, apparently.
It's a sign of friendship, yes. Yeah. If you were to gift, like I do, these little stuffed animals of panda bears, it's a sign of friendship to somebody. So high in diplomacy, as you said, Bev.
Which actually brings me beautifully onto my next story this evening. That wasn't deliberate, ladies and gentlemen, but also breaking tonight. The Prime Minister has delivered a major speech mentioning the threat of China.
A country that poses real national security threats to the United Kingdom. With all that in mind, the absence of engagement is just staggering. A dereliction of duty, because it means that, unlike our allies, we have not been standing up for our interests. Well, no more. It's time for a serious approach, to reject the simplistic binary choice, neither golden age nor ice age, and recognise the plain fact that you can work and trade with a country while still protecting yourself.
So is the Prime Minister taking the threat of China seriously? Because the US is, it said last week in a briefing to GB News that Beijing was more of a threat than Russia. So let's speak now to China commentator and author of China's Urban Revolution, Austin Williams. Austin, thank you for joining us this evening. So no exchange of pandas in sight at the moment between China and the UK. And should there be? Where are we at with China? How frightened should we be of them?
Well, look, I mean, I think, ironically, and you won't hear me say this very often, but Starmer had a point there when he said we have to deal with China. I mean, it's the second biggest economy in the world, and we would be foolish not to have some of that dosh, especially at a time when we need it so desperately. So, you know, Starmer's very keen on international diplomacy. As a matter of fact, somebody was once saying that Starmer visits Britain might be a headline that we read very soon because he's so rarely in the country. So he likes that Davos versus Westminster playing on the world stage. So we understand some of the remits that he's got. But I do think he has a point that, you know, if we are going to be seen as gaining some of the benefits, if you like, from Brexit, which is going on the world stage and making deals. Not that we're necessarily going to get a trade deal with China anytime soon, but I think that kind of negotiated position of really kind of putting ourselves forward and seeing ourselves as a positive player, rather than retreating and have everything bought by China in this country, and we become China's poodle. I think there's something in what he says. Whether he does it or not, I think his fat chance springs to mind, because ultimately he seems to be kind of acting tough, but has very little to substantiate it. As a matter of fact, when he talks about the threat of China, which was a very ironic statement, you know, that China is a threat and that's why we have to deal with them. But I do think that given the fact that Rachel Reeves did a budget where she didn't even mention defense spending, let alone anything of clarity in terms of where we stand in the world, you know, there's a lot of confusion out there. But I think the essence of it, if it were to be made good, which I doubt, then I think I'd be supportive.
And what would that look like, making it good, as somebody that understands that country very well? Because Sir Keir Starmer stressed, he said, China remained a nation of immense scale, ambition and ingenuity, and a defining force in technology, trade and global governance. So how do you work with a country that's that powerful whilst also having your political wits about you?
Well, I mean, so political wits starts from the fact that in this country, in the UK, we've obviously kind of gone in hock to net zero, and we've almost destroyed our own industries on the back of green politicking, while China is becoming a world leader in green. So we've almost like given them center stage by our own mismanagement. But at the same time, I do find that China's economy is not as grand and as dynamic and as successful and as stable as maybe we've been led to believe. So there are kind of openings in global markets. I mean, in some ways, we talk about those kind of soft power issues, the education, the media, the literature, all those kind of film, those kind of things, which actually we have been selling to China for quite some time. China's now starting to make up its own market. But I do think we do have one thing which China doesn't yet have, which is, we used to call it democracy. It's a failing model in the West, so we have to reestablish it. But I think if we could try to develop some sense of immersing China in what we have in terms of positive ability to speak our minds about our ability to think for ourselves, then that would be quite something. Obviously, we have to start to do that in UK first before we can export it. But you get my drift.
I get it. I know exactly what you're saying there. Thank you, Austin. Austin Williams there, the author of China's Urban Revolution. Just want to bring you up to speed on this developing story this evening about the fact that President Trump has given Maduro, the president of Venezuela, until Friday to leave Venezuela with his family. My panel are here with me. Laurie, can you make that threat to the leader of Venezuela, President Trump?
Well, technically, no, unless we were actively engaged in war and the president declared that we are at war with Venezuela, which technically that has not happened, which is why Congress, House and Senate, Republican leaders are calling for this full investigation into what was happening about specifically that second strike that came out and was reported by the Washington Post over the weekend.
Do you think he has to do something about the drugs war with Venezuela, if we call it that, or the importing of drugs from Venezuela into America that he feels really strongly about?
Nobody is against that. I'm certainly not against that. I've lost many friends to fentanyl deaths, prescription drugs, etc. I'm absolutely not against that, nor do I believe the majority or any of those members of Congress, former veterans, well, former active duty, also veterans, and worked in the intelligence community. And it's very clear now that that is why that video was created and went out, is because, and I thought that was absolutely, gives more credibility and responsibility to those members that did that, because they received that information in classified briefings. They can't come out and say what they saw in those briefings. So they came up with this video because they were aware, because this had happened back in September, that there were active duty military members that were asked by the Department, the Secretary of Defense, to do a second strike, which is against the Constitution, it's against the law, and it is considered a war crime. And so those people that executed those could, at some point, be prosecuted criminally, and that's what this fear is about, Bev.
Thomas, is that what's going on here? Because we know that Trump is absolutely raging a war against drug importation into this country. He feels really strongly about it, and this is his way of clamping down on Venezuela. Has he gone too far? Is he going too far?
Well, the thing with this is that he's losing some of his base, because if you remember back to the campaign, he ran on a very simple platform of no more wars. You know, he said, we're not going to go into any wars. And the justification for this being a war on drugs is confusing a lot of people, because Venezuela is not the top drug producer. If you were doing a war on drugs, we should be going to war with Mexico. You know, if you really wanted to get into taking down the drugs, you would go after the cartels, you would go after Colombia, which produces a lot. Venezuela at most can be claimed for it packages some of the drugs. But if you really wanted to go after the drugs, he should be going to Mexico and the cartel, and even looking at Arizona, which is, you know, a very strong cartel stronghold. So he's losing some of his base with this. So we'll see what he does, because I'm not too sure the people are very happy about another war.
Are you both aware of this theory that this is actually a war on China by proxy? Have you heard much about that? Because China has so many vested interests in Venezuela. Is that happening here?
Geopolitically, they're tied to it, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that this is just about China with Donald Trump. He wants him out of there. The woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Machado, like she would be she's currently the opposition leader running. President Trump has been very complimentary to her. She called him after she won the Nobel Peace Prize and said it should have been you. But there's also been a lot of criticism against her recently that she is leading the United States through these policy discussions and backdoor conversations with Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, etc., and some of these negotiators, even Steve Witkoff, that she is pushing them into a direction with misinformation, which is kind of exacerbating the timeline of this for the U.S., specifically Donald Trump, and whether or not he's going to, Thomas is shaking his head, whether or not he's going to push forward with this as fast as he is. And my whole thing, Bev, is, great, we're killing drug dealers. Show us the evidence of that. And the fact that you have gone around Congress, who has to authorize these kinds of military actions, that's flag number one. The second is, why did you order second strikes when it's illegal for you to do so? It's very illegal to do so. You went against your JAGs. Hegseth recently got rid of the entire JAG Corps, which is also very concerning for those, your audience, that is the lawyers that work in the military, JAG Corps officers, who push back or give military advice and policy advice to the Secretary of Defense on what they should do legally. And the fact that he got rid of those people and went ahead against their advice, that's very concerning.
What would President Trump say in reaction to that then, Thomas?
Well,
I'm not saying treat you like Caroline Levitt, but what would he say?
Well, but this is the interesting thing, is it's one of actually the many few issues that actually seem to be uniting the left and the right. So I think the right base are at odds with the Congress on this. I think the Congress is full of quite a few warmongers that love to go to war. So the people on the ground are not really in favor of this, but a lot of the Republican lawmakers are in favor of it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a very tense situation, whatever the motivations are. Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Laurie and Thomas, thank you for now. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. The SES are fighting back as senior officers accuse the High Court's war crimes inquiry of bias against the UK. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In summary, this level of detailed assessment is standard for an executive physical at President Trump's age and confirms that he remains in excellent overall health.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. That was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt at a briefing earlier today when she confirmed that President Trump is in perfect health after speculation over his MRI scan in October. My panel are just here with me. I mean, I find it extraordinary, Thomas, that a president would release such personal medical detail. And the letter is really detailed.
It is quite detailed, yeah, and it is shocking. I mean, I can't imagine Keir Starmer releasing, his NHS records to us, but I think the president is doing that. There's been a lot of speculation about his health recently, and I think he's saying, well, I'm in good health. Let's show the people, which is quite remarkable because he does sort of eat McDonald's every day and is not necessarily the healthiest person. But the records are showing he's pretty healthy.
He doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke, and it makes a big difference. Never drunk. I find that amazing. Laurie, do you think he should have to show that sort of detail to the public?
Yes, absolutely. He's the president of the United States. We need to make sure that we have the person of sound mind that's also physically fit and capable of not dropping dead, at any moment.
But Biden didn't do, crikey, can you imagine if Biden had been asked to show his details? He couldn't have done.
Every time.
But his cognitive testing, that was clearly not accurate.
Well, people are saying that about Donald Trump, so they both released the records showing otherwise, so we have to stand by that if those records are accurate for both sides.
I have a massive problem with...
So it's always been done, though, is that they've always shown the records.
Really?
Yes.
Because we do not have that in the UK, and I don't think we should have to do that. Surely medical privacy is an absolute tenet of our medical ethics in our country.
Well, I would have been interested in seeing maybe Boris's health. That would have been interesting to see. But, you know, yeah, you're right. The Biden did not show anything like this. He never went to that level, and I would have loved to know what cocktail of drugs they were giving him before his conferences, because you could almost see him sort of waning off. You know, he came out feisty and then he sort of dipped to the end, and eventually that was his downfall. It led to him being kicked out of the debate and Kamala taking over because of his mental decline. So it is crazy, but yeah, you know, the president seems to be actually a very healthy man.
Yeah, I find that extraordinary. I would defend any politician's right to have medical privacy and not have to tell us if they're suffering from anything behind closed doors, because you know what, if they have to do it, we might as well. So there you go. Let me know what you think at home, gbnews.com/your say. Now, a whistleblower has said that special forces war crimes in Afghanistan, in inverted commas, are a stain on the memory of British soldiers who lost their lives fighting the Taliban. A public inquiry was also told that the director of the special forces made a conscious decision to cover up the allegations to protect the reputation of the elite units. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has permanently paused migration from all third world countries, with America pausing visas for all Afghan passport holders, even those who worked with America during that 20-year war. I'm joined now by the former chairman of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood, to talk about these two completely different positions. Tobias, thank you very much for joining me. So, is it appropriate for the British authorities to try to hold SAS officers to account for things that happened years ago? It feels incredibly unpatriotic.
Yes, I can understand that feeling, but I served in the armed forces, and I think the British public would like to know that wherever the armed forces are sent, that we act with integrity. We are trained to the most highest professional standards, and we have that reputation around the world. And I'm pleased to say that in most situations, that's exactly what our armed forces do, including our special forces. But clearly, there are some questions to be answered here. It was appropriate for the Ministry of Defence to ask for this inquiry to go ahead. What I'm puzzled to see is why, halfway through this investigation, Lord Justice Hayden Cave, who's running the inquiry, chooses to release redacted documents, evidence taken over a year ago, halfway through, before he's reached his conclusion. And it doesn't help the reputation of the armed forces as a whole at the very time when we're trying to advance our defence posture. The world's getting more dangerous, not less. I would have liked to have seen the inquiry reached its conclusion, come out with its recommendations, allowing the MOD to then respond exactly to what's happened in Afghanistan. That's not the case here. What we're now left with is an awful lot of speculation, which damages the reputation of the army as a whole, and I think that's deeply unhelpful.
But the SAS are our SAS is the best trained forces in the world. They will have had such meticulous detail and planning into those operations. They would have then had granular analysis in their debriefing of any of these operations. Doesn't this just feel like a huge waste of money on lawyers, Tobias? And also, what message does it give to our forces that we might come back and start to comb through things that happened years ago in the middle of war? I think there's huge questions to be asked about whether this is what the British public would even want to happen.
I think the British public would want to know that wherever we send our armed forces, that they actually uphold those rules of engagement that they're sent to follow. They uphold the Geneva Conventions as well. I hear what you're saying by saying it's happened a long time ago. We shouldn't dust over anything that's happened in the past and soldiers feel they can get away with it. I would agree with you that there shouldn't be unnecessary witch hunts. We've seen that in Northern Ireland, where it's been absolutely ridiculous. When after the Good Friday Agreement, because people weren't convicted prior to that, we had IRA prisoners released after murdering many people, doing 2 years in prison, and then released because of the agreement. But in this situation, it's different, where we've actually had the SAS soldiers themselves say that there was errant behavior taking place. That's the difference here. Quite rightly, it needs to be investigated. My concern is why release documents halfway through that investigation that's leading to speculation. I would like to see the entirety concluded and then for the MOD to make judgments on what actually happened in there. I have to say, from what's been released so far, there are some big questions to be answered, and it would be wrong for us to dismiss that and just simply move on.
Just draw a comparison, if you would, for a minute, Tobias, with President Trump here in America. There was the terror attack here in Washington, D.C. only last week, in which 2 National Guard soldiers were shot. One of them sadly died, one of them still fighting for their life. The response from President Trump to that was one of, some would say, impulsive discrimination, and other people would say absolute strength in the eye of potential threats, which is to pause the visas of anybody from Afghanistan, whether they work with America or not. How do you view that reaction through your British lens?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one indeed. We went into Afghanistan to liberate the country. We took responsibility for it, and then slowly we gave up and handed the country back to the very insurgents that we went in there to defeat. And now we're left with this very difficult situation of some migrants, some very bad apples, actually undermining the support that we're giving to majority of the population that are very well behaved indeed. I've been involved in terrorist attacks. I lost my brother to a terrorist attack. I'm very conscious of the fact that any government needs to be seen to be very strong in dealing with non-state actors in this way. It's important, though, that we not only remain vigilant, but actually do the right thing. I think overreaction can actually lead to then further consequences. Afghanistan is an unfinished story because we've walked away and left it in the hands of an insurgency regime that's now not able to control that country. There's another terrorist organization, ISIS-K, now taking over from what the Taliban did before, and that's going to come back and haunt us again in the future.
Yeah, OK, Tobias, fascinating. Thank you so much. Former Chairman of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood there. I could feel you wanting to get in on that, my panel here. Laurie?
Yes, so I do not agree to discriminate wholeheartedly against all Afghan people that are under the SIV special visa program. Because of the relationship the United States and agreement that we had with them for almost 2 decades, that they gave up their lives, they gave up their identities in order to support the United States intelligence and military communities in trying to end global terror and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And then to the way that the withdrawal happened was not a very good strategic move. It fell apart. Many service members, I believe 13 or 14, even lost their lives in that evacuation efforts. But those people, we promised them, and I worked with them, that we would protect them when the time came to get them out of the country. And I stand behind that and believe that we should be continuing to do so. And I actually processed the first group of Afghan evacuees that came at Fort Pickett in Virginia after they went through all the proper vetting. I also worked on biometrics, which is done for each of these individuals. In a span of 20 days straight, we processed over 15,000 people at just one military installation, okay? That's how many people were coming through. But I say that to say this individual worked with one of the most specialized units within the CIA.
You mean the perpetrator of the murders last week?
Correct. The man who has been being charged for this attack. The vetting that he went through was incredible. He also started at a very young age. What I want to say to your viewers is this is under active investigation, but you can do all the vetting you want about a person's history, their past, but you cannot predict, Bev, the future of any individual that's living on this planet, right? And so that doesn't excuse anything but the argument about how did he go through vetting. He went through multiple administrations' vetting, in fact, and he was determined that he could stay here and remain here in this country. That's all I want to say about that. So to penalize all Afghans, I think, is not only short-sighted, it's going to be very dangerous, especially for those individuals and their families.
It's a really difficult issue because I think it demonstrated a show of strength in the aftermath of that atrocious, cold-blooded attack on the streets of DC last week. But it is a difficult thing to do, isn't it, Thomas? Like Laurie says, you can't predict. In fact, we're going to be talking to somebody about, because more has emerged about that perpetrator from last week. We're going to be interviewing somebody to find out a bit more about him. And it looks like he was radicalised whilst he was here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You can't predict what people are going to do. So I would then argue, why are we bringing these people over? You know, this idea that these people were sort of heroes in Afghanistan is not true. They were doing it for money. They were being paid by the Americans. There's not many jobs in Afghanistan, so they were willing to go out there and be paid. And most of them were smart people. So I would argue they should stay in their country and build their own government and try and fix Afghanistan instead of fleeing to another nation. So I think it's just a disaster that we keep bringing these people in.
OK, we're going to come back to that as the show goes on, because I think there may be a little disagreement on that issue. Still to come this evening, though, on The Late Show Live, a British IT consultant's selfie with a gun in America, we're looking at the picture here on your screen, has led to his arrest back home. He's going to join me in the next part to tell me all about it. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, IT consultant John Richelieu-Booth was arrested by police in Britain after he posted a picture of himself posing with a gun whilst he was in Florida in the US. The 50-year-old posted the image on August the 13th to the site LinkedIn, which is a professional social media site, holding a shotgun. He was on a private homestead in Florida. And Elon Musk even commented on it on his platform X, and he said, "This is why we have the First and Second Amendments in America. So with me now is the man at the centre of the story, John Richelieu-Booth. Good evening, John. Thank you for joining me on The Late Show Live to tell me all about it. So you're in trouble. That was very naughty of you to post a picture of yourself with a gun in Florida. What happened?
Naughty boy, naughty boy. Thank you for having me. So I travelled to Florida for my 50th birthday, and I spent some time on a homestead with a former workmate and his family. We had the 4th of July, which obviously was amazing, and on the 5th of July we were all hanging out and my friends were shooting, and they said, "Hey John, do you wanna take a go?" Because obviously you don't get the chance to do that. You'll notice from the photo I'm not holding the gun right, and I look absolutely terrified. As I say, first attempt to hold an operate a firearm. I
mean, you're talking to the wrong person if I'm supposed to work out how you hold a gun properly, John. I can tell you that now as a fellow Northerner, as a Mancunian. Yep. I didn't see many guns in Prestwich, to be fair.
No.
But what were you actually shooting? Anything in particular? What were you shooting?
It was just a cardboard target that my friends had set up. We weren't aiming at anybody. It was just a bit of fun and experience that we don't get as Brits. So
And so you got home, and West Yorkshire Police came and knocked on the door, did they? And what did they say to you?
So they rang me and said, "We need to talk to you. I've got nothing to hide. I've been a good boy for 50 years." So I gave them my address, and they rocked up 15 minutes later, and I got told that I'd posted a picture online that had caused somebody alarm and distress, being the photo in question that you can see on the screen. I had an interchange with the officer. I offered to show him the original photo that my friend Richard had sent me with all the geotags and everything on, and the officer said that's not necessary. Fast forward about 10 days later, it was Sunday night, 10:30, and the same officer turned up, but this time he'd brought a friend with him, and they hammered on my door like they were trying to break it down. I opened the door and they told me I was under arrest. They took me to Bradford, Trafalgar, where I was held overnight and interviewed by a different officer. I was released on bail, accused of both the picture of the shotgun being posted to cause harassment, alarm and distress, and also regarding an unrelated post, which was just changing the cover picture on my LinkedIn to a pair of gates. I was accused of actually stalking a former client who owes myself and a lot of other IT consultants money, and has done for 2 years. One of my business partners reached out to the police and said, that photo of the gates is mine. I took it when I was serving a final demand. John has never been there, yet the police kept me on the hook for the next 6 weeks, during which time they turned up to my home 3 times when I was out. One of those days was when I was at the inquest in North Allerton dealing with my parents' deaths. I was then arrested for an alleged breach of bail, which I did not commit, and a week later the charges were dropped, but I was charged with a separate incident, which was a Section 4A public order offence of posting language or imagery designed to cause harassment, alarm and distress. The case was then dropped.
And so John, do you know? So had they drawn a connection between the picture of you with the gun was meant to be threatening to the person whose house you'd put on LinkedIn? Is that what the allegation was? Is that the person that complained?
Yes, it is. The person that owns the company that I was contracting for, that has owed me and a lot of other contractors money, he took a post that doesn't mention him at all, which was a vacation snap, a photo that my business partner took, which admittedly was probably not the best photo to post. However, the police blew this out of all proportion. There was never a threat made against this individual, and it's just absolutely Orwellian.
What's it been like for you, John? Because obviously Elon Musk has noticed this, a man with a significant number of followers on social media. I mean, he owns the place, doesn't he? And so he's retweeted it and reposted it. And so what now? Do you want to get asylum here in America?
Absolutely. I lost my entire family in 2023 in a car crash. I've been persecuted by the police over an innocuous post. They seem to have taken this guy's word as gospel, which is embarrassing. I was always raised to believe in truth and justice, and I guess the American way. But you know, the police have just—it's a massive overreach. I'm still trying to figure out what next. I'm trying to be humble. I'm praying for guidance on this. I just want to get out of this country. I don't feel welcome anymore. I just don't know what's next. It feels like my entire life, my livelihood has been tanked by the police.
That's awful, and I'm also incredibly sorry to hear about your family, John. That's shocking and devastating for you.
Thank you.
But do you have any idea whether the president is aware of your story? Because it is a free speech issue. I suppose the reason it's caught the imagination of America as well is that you were in that situation quite legally holding a firearm, and that's a very sensitive issue here in America. And that's why Elon Musk has talked about the First and Second Amendments, so it's free speech and the right to bear arms. That's why it's caught the imagination over here in America, hasn't it? Are you going to let it drop? Are you going to push it further, John?
I don't know what's next. I do think that we do need to have a conversation about free speech. Like President Trump said in the Oval Office, and Vice President Vance said in the Oval Office, we are concerned about free speech. And then Keir Starmer said, well, we've had it in the UK for a very long time. We'll continue to have it for a very long time. I would challenge that. I don't believe that. And I believe that, Elon Musk buying Twitter X was a great idea for free speech. You might not like him, but he has opened the conversation up to everybody. And I don't know if President Trump has seen Elon's retweet or my photo, but given his interest in free speech, I would certainly hope he has. And I think President Trump is one of the greatest advocates for free speech that we have. So I'd be open to obviously anything he needed, but he hasn't.
All right, John.
indicated he knows anything.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with the Late Show Live and GB News. It's really interesting and really good to talk to you. John Richelieu Booth there. You can have a look at his story on the gbnews.com website. Now, the West Yorkshire Police said police received a complaint of stalking involving serious alarm or distress relating partly to social media posts, several of which included pictures of a male posing with a variety of firearms which the complainants took to be a threat. Police investigated and charged a man with a public order offence, but the case was then discontinued by the Crown Prosecution Service. Let me know what you think at home. I know you will. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, we're going to have a look at tomorrow's biggest headlines. And is America edging closer to war with Venezuela? Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk No, now? that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show, live with me, Bev Turner. Now, this Christmas, we are putting on a really exciting event, and we want lots of you to be there too. On Saturday, the 13th of December, you are invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. For your chance to be with us, you can apply for tickets by scanning the QR code on screen right now, or by going to gbnews.com/carols. And the concert will be broadcast on Christmas Eve, and I am devastated that I will still be in America, because I would have loved to have been there. So please go on my behalf. Now let's delve into some of the main stories on the front of tomorrow's newspapers. The Independent are leading with Starmer. We didn't mislead anyone on budget black hole. The Prime Minister's forced to publicly defend Rachel Reeves over accusations that she lied to voters about Britain's finances. The Daily Telegraph, Reeves clings on as the OBR chief silenced. And this, of course, is the OBR chief who has resigned. Some people saying that he was forced out in order to protect Rachel Reeves, because somebody had to go. The Sun is leading in England, star in rape arrest. This is one of those stories that pops up from time to time, which is about a footballer, we don't know who, held at a UK airport. And The Guardian, they're leading on the OBR chair quitting after the inquiry into the early release of the budget document, and the Attorney General calling for Nigel Farage to apologise for allegations of racism whilst he was at school. I wanted to go to Benjamin Butterworth, but we haven't got time because we've only got about 30 seconds left. So Benjamin, apologies. I will come to you in the next hour. I promise you. Let me know what you think at home this evening. We've said tonight that President Trump has given Maduro, the president of Venezuela, until Friday to leave his job and get out of the country. In fact, Michelle says, please, Bev, ask President Trump to give Keir Starmer the same ultimatum, that he's out of the job by Friday. I'm afraid I don't wield that sort of influence, Michelle, but I know exactly where you're coming from. And some of you saying, well done, GB News, for getting the mugs finally on the desk. I have been here for a few days. Where have you been? Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a very quick break and we will be back in just a moment.
Today, clouds overhead.
Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Now, although today will be a drier day, there's still a fair few blustery showers on the way for many western areas. Some sunshine in between, and we've got off to a pretty bright start across the east, and there will be more sunshine on the way for many eastern areas. Further west, though, you can see a plethora of showers moving in from the Atlantic. Some of these will really pack a punch, bringing a risk of hail and thunder, particularly to the south and west. But notice some very heavy showers across the northwest too. Now, temperatures are a degree or so cooler than yesterday, but it will feel that much more pleasant, particularly in any sheltered sunshine across the east. Now, the winds will be quite strong, particularly across northwestern areas close to this small area of low pressure. So that brings an unsettled evening to parts of the Highlands and the Western Isles in particular, where we'll continue to see these showers moving in through this evening. Eastern areas of Scotland, the central belt, seeing plenty of dry weather, some clearer skies developing through this evening, as well as across Northern Ireland. The temperatures will start to fall away. Still quite a lot of cloud around for many central and southern areas of England and Wales, and a number of showers still yet to move through on Tuesday evening. They could come further inland across eastern areas for a time, but overnight tonight it will become clearer and drier for many areas. There will still be a number of showers, particularly across coastal areas, western coasts of the UK. So here there'll be more cloud, will be frost-free, but inland sheltered areas could see a touch of frost by Wednesday morning. So a cooler start to the day on Wednesday than today, but more in the way of sunshine to come. A fairly settled day actually for eastern areas. A very different story though for northern Scotland, where this rain will turn to snow over the highest ground. Further south, a mixture of sunshine and showers, particularly across the west, but more in the way of drier weather to come on Wednesday compared to today. And as a result, temperatures will climb to the double digits, 10 or 11 degrees across southwestern areas. See you soon.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is America edging closer to war with Venezuela? And if so, what is really behind it? And on the other end of the spectrum, is Peppa Pig a bad role model? Daddy Pig a bad role model for men? Thank you for joining me. So tonight on The Late Show Live, is America on the brink of war with Venezuela? Tonight, Donald Trump is hosting a crunch meeting on the next steps. We've seen those shocking footage of drug boats being blown out of the water. Well, what is going on next? We're going to bring you the latest lines from that meeting. There are also some interesting details now emerging in the international press about the National Guard shooter. The suspect apparently refused to speak English, despite the fact that he had 5 children here, the youngest only being 2, and suggestions that he was radicalised against America whilst living here. And also this evening, who did it?
3, 2, 1, go Samuel!
It was a very nice tree, but the whole thing is a little bit rubbish, really, isn't it? Well, wait until we show you what happened in the White House with their Christmas lights. It is genuinely so beautiful. Oh, look, we're getting a little glimpse here. This is from FLOTUS. That's the First Lady of the United States. I mean, just look how beautiful this is. If you're listening on the radio, I'm so sorry, I cannot do this justice. It is utterly exquisite. Their interior design with these huge white baubles on these huge Christmas trees, and these this sort of how would you describe that, Thomas? It's these little beautiful blue butterflies.
It's very whimsical.
Very whimsical, and it says "Be Best" on the baubles. You would never get that in the UK, would you? You'd get "Be Kind" or something trite like that. Beautiful. There's a gingerbread house that we will show you. I think we see this incredible, and this isn't even the official Christmas tree lights. They get turned on Thursday on the actual tree, don't they? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be there for GB News. This is a gingerbread house. That's not a gingerbread house. That's the nativity scene. And there is Melania Trump just wafting around in these beautiful, beautiful rooms. I mean, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? It makes a bit of a mockery of our tree outside Downing Street. Right, this is The Late Show Live. This is the second hour. We've got all the stories you're going to be talking about later today, more debates, 0 ad breaks. So stay with me. So this evening we're asking whether tension between America and Venezuela is nearing a breaking point. Here was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt earlier this afternoon talking about a second strike on drug trafficking vessels. Here she is.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations.
So that comes after a report that President Trump's Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, reportedly gave a spoken directive to kill everybody on board in a second strike on an alleged drug trafficking vessel. Now, tonight, President Donald Trump has held talks with top advisors to discuss the pressure campaign on Venezuela, and sources say that he's given Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, until Friday to leave his country. Let's speak now to Abigail Hall, Associate Professor in Economics at the University of Tampa. Good evening, Abigail. So, what happens next here, and what is really going on in this situation? Is it just about stopping drug trafficking, or does Venezuela represent something a little more economically interesting for President Trump than just that issue?
I think it's likely the latter as opposed to the former. If you're looking at a legitimate drug operation, Venezuela is not the place to look if you are the U.S. government. Venezuela, however, is an easy target as far as politics goes, and certainly if the U.S. were to have a friendlier regime in Caracas, this could be a big feather in the cap for the Trump administration.
So you're alluding then to the idea that this is somehow a kind of a coup, if you like, an American coup of the leadership in Venezuela to have somebody in that position who may be more America friendly?
Well, certainly this would not be the first instance of the U.S. government interfering in the government of a Latin American country. So we can go back a couple of centuries if we're interested, but over, say, the last several decades, you can look at countries like Guatemala, Nicaragua, among many others, where there's been an attempt, either successful or unsuccessful, at regime change. And at this point, especially given what we're hearing about this purported ultimatum between Trump and Maduro, it seems as though regime change may be, well, what the administration is going for.
And what do you think Maduro will do? Is he likely to leave the country by Friday? And what might happen if he doesn't?
So certainly that is an open question. So if he is in fact facing this ultimatum to leave, the question is one, where would he go? And then what would that mean for Venezuela? What would the government look like? In terms of will he actually leave, I think that certainly is an open question. He's been remarkably steadfast that he will not kowtow to the U.S. government. If he doesn't, though, I think that what we're seeing in terms of military strikes off the coast of Venezuela, I think you might see more active military engagement on land.
And how do you think the American people would feel about this, Abigail? Are they on board with taking such decisive action against Venezuela?
So right now we're seeing a lot of discussion kind of on both sides. So for those who are thinking along the same lines of the administration in terms of narrative, they are seeing these strikes as being against narco traffickers, whereas you have a lot of people, and one of the things that we're certainly seeing in the media, especially today, following the reports on what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has purportedly said, people are really questioning not only the legality of these strikes, but again, this question of what are the end goals of the U.S. government and Venezuela.
And what role is China playing in all of this, Abigail? Because there is one theory that China is so baked into businesses in Venezuela, all sorts of revenue streams that it generates out of that country. And so by undermining and disempowering elements of Venezuela, Trump is actually by proxy taking a swipe at the Chinese. Is there any truth in that theory?
I think there might be a kernel of truth in that theory. So if you look at who kind of the big allies are for the Maduro administration in Caracas, you are looking at China and you're looking at Russia. And so for perspective, both China and Russia have drilled for oil in Venezuela's Orinoco River, as well as in Lake Maracaibo. And so certainly if those types of relationships were to be disrupted, or again, you had a friendlier U.S. regime in Caracas, that would certainly be a swipe at or offer a black eye to kind of some intense geopolitical enemies of the administration.
Yeah, always more going on than it seems, isn't there? Abigail Hall there, thank you so much, Professor in Economics at the University of Tampa. Let me know your thoughts this evening, gbnews.com/your say. Should we talk about this with my panel? I think so. Thomas and Laurie Watkins are still here with me. Not Thomas and Laurie Watkins, I made it sound like a married couple then. Laurie Watkins and Thomas Corbett-Dillon are still here with me. So we did discuss this in the first hour, but let's just revisit it again then, Thomas. What is going on here with President Trump? But does he have a mandate from the American public to wage war against Venezuela?
I would say he probably doesn't. I think particularly his base are very against foreign wars. You know, everyone was saying this, why are we spending money abroad when you spend money inside the US? But Congress is very full of, let's say, lots of warmongers. They love, in America they call them war hawks. They love war. There's lots of money in war. Yeah. So they want to spend money and they have seemed to have set their eyes on Venezuela. But as your previous guest was saying, you know, Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. And we think of Saudi Arabia as like the #1 oil place. Well, Venezuela's got more. 70% of the world's oil is in Venezuela. So I do think there's other reasons which, you know, if they pitch this to the American public, maybe they'd be more on board with it. But another foreign war, and, you know, unless it's a quick strike and he goes out and they can put someone in, this could be a long war for them. Yeah. What do you think, Laurie? Is this potentially a battle that's going to drag on with Venezuela? Because Donald Trump is very pleased with being the peace president. Like, he's very proud of being a president who has brought more conflicts to an end than he started, contrary to what a lot of people would assume about him. He wouldn't be getting involved with this if he didn't really think it was the right thing to do, would he?
Well, because the right thing to do is his interest in the oil, which is what Thomas was saying. You have a member of Congress from Florida, my home state right now, Maria Salazar, who has a bill that tries to do carve-outs for the oil industry and making deals with the United States for some of those also critical and rare earth minerals that are also located in Venezuela. So Donald Trump has had his eye on this country for a while. He sees this as an opening. I do not at all think that the American people are down with this war. Venezuela is a lot closer, for example, than Donald Trump currently always refers to Ukraine and Russia as far away, and we have an ocean between us. Venezuela, yes, there is also an ocean involved, but it's not that far away from our shoreline. Certainly, if someone were to use nuclear or any kind of antagonistic weaponry against the United States. So I think that Donald Trump needs to take a pause making a threat like that. All I have to say is if he made that threat, he better be ready to stand by it by Friday and take action, because he drew a line in the sand with that announcement, tweet, whatever it was, how he put that out there into the global and public sphere. But it's out there, so when you draw a red line like that, you better be prepared to deal with the consequences that could come along with that. Yeah, and he normally is, isn't he? I mean, I want to just revisit a topic what we were talking about earlier when I said we're going to come back to this because you two were disagreeing. I know, we're talking about Afghanistan. Because we are going to talk in a minute about that situation with the National Guard. And Thomas made the statement that actually he thinks that if people, even if they'd worked with the American government, they shouldn't be here. You strongly disagree. Yeah, absolutely. As a person who worked in defense and international and national security realms, absolutely we need our allies, whether those are countries that are being run by the Taliban, and we need to help protect them from such. We absolutely for decades prevented that war and that conflict and global terrorism from spreading into even farther reaches of the world than we can even imagine. And we had an obligation to take care of those people and still take care of them for the missions and the support that they gave the United States that helped not just our own national security, but the national security of our allies and including our adversaries that are spread around the world. And you were saying you were there when there was 15,000, did you say? That was just in 2 weeks, yes. But how can you possibly vet? Then how can you vet that many people in such a short period of time? There was hundreds, if not a couple thousand of us doing this work, and that was just at one military installation.
But what is that vetting? Do you intend any harm on the American public? No, I do not. Tick a box.
Course,
that's it.
Of course we were not processing people to have harm, create harm. They had to have family ties, connections to people in certain, that's how they, there was a lot of people actually going to Bellingham, Washington, where this individual resided, because there's large Afghan populations out there, as well as in Northern Virginia, we have some as well as in different parts of the Midwest, etc. But that's where the connections were made. Also, the United States government and military and intelligence agencies told these individuals to destroy all of their documentation. That was number one. I'm sure you can remember reporting on this.
The American administration told
Afghan people before they went to Abbey Gate, for example, in Kabul, to get on these C-130s to make their way to the United States for safe passage, to destroy their documents, because if they were found and confiscated, that the Taliban would know who they were and then kill them and their families. So we told them to do those things as well. So a lot of them arriving here, we had to do double, triple the amount of work in order to be able to vet them properly, because just to start, a lot of them had little to no documentation, because that was our order that we gave to those people.
And did they want to be here?
No, most migrants do not want to be out of their country. They want to stay in their homeland. You think that all thousands and thousands of people wanted to leave their homeland? They had to, because if they didn't, they would die. They would be killed. Their daughters would be turned into slave brides. They would be sexually assaulted. They don't even have schools for women and young girls in Afghanistan anymore. Absolutely not.
Which surely raises the question of why so many people from such a medieval culture were invited to live in America. If they don't educate their girls and they force them to cover their heads, why was America so welcoming?
We were helping educate them for almost 20 years, and then as soon as the United States pulled out, that was what they went back to.
Thomas, I bet you're tamping together.
I mean, that was a great point. You said we did it for 20 years, and what? We didn't convert any of these people. We literally, as soon as the Americans pulled out, they reverted back to their medieval ways.
Like that.
Well, it doesn't make sense. And you know, these countries, 20 years, all those guys that went over and died.
You've had a much privileged life than the people that grew up in Afghanistan.
But what do we have to show for that war? 20-year war, and it's now a hellhole again. And it's like, what was the point? Why do we keep going to these awful places thinking we can bring democracy, and they're just like us? They're not. They have their own ways, and we should leave them and let them do their own thing.
It's part of our soft power here. And as a Brit saying, what did we get for it? Be careful what you're saying here, standing on United States of America ground, Thomas, really, because we lost a lot of soldiers, we lost a lot of men and women, we lost a lot of people in the intelligence agency who lost their lives.
But so did the UK.
Dedicating their career.
But so did the UK.
Yes, but he wasn't speaking as such when he was just giving his examples about that. So what did we get for it?
Well, go on. We went in with the Americans. The Americans were pushing us in. It wasn't a British-led war. We were on the American side. So I think we went in. I was talking about both Americans and the Brits there. So, but yeah, we have nothing to show for it. It was a completely pointless war, and I think everyone knows
that. It was a pointless war in terms of the devastation to the Afghan people as well as the coalition troops, and that evacuation under Biden's leadership,
negotiated under Donald Trump.
Negotiated under Donald Trump, but then enacted in 2022. When Biden's logic was, we're having a pandemic. We have to get everybody out because we need to save our money to spend here. We can't afford to spend any more money on Afghanistan. That was unforgivable to do that to the Afghan people, to leave like that, surely.
Okay, yes, you just contradicted yourself, though, by saying, why should we continue to stay there? Then you're mad that he pulled people out because it was a waste of money.
No, because he didn't. No, because you can't. But that's
you can't have it both ways, unfortunately.
No, I think there's probably more agreement here than we realise. My point being, if you occupy a country for that many years, you have an obligation to sort it out before you leave in the dead of night, leaving 100%. Helicopters.
You heard when I first started, I said that that withdrawal was an absolute abomination to our national security, the way that we treat our allies and partners, period. It left a stain on the United States of America and our reputation around the entire world about how we handled or mishandled that.
But and to Thomas's point, that nothing had changed culturally. Nothing had changed. The Taliban was still going to oppress women. There was still going to be no freedom for anybody in that country. And under that monoculture of extreme Islamism, hundreds, tens of thousands of people were picked up from that country and brought here. So, which is also a complete error in terms of the American government and how that would affect American people living here, culminating in 2 National Guards people being shot on the streets of DC last week.
What do you want me to say?
Well, let me know at home.
It's the engagements of war. We've done that, your country as well, for centuries, and it's not right. It's the ramifications and consequences of war, and it's part of why I hate war, and I used to work at the Pentagon, for God's sakes, but it's awful.
All of these things now, you know, these weapons have made their way into Iran, have made their way into...
And look at what has happened since the United States has left, and I will say the global south is absolutely every country in that region is under attack on a daily basis. You talk about India, you talk about Pakistan, what's happening there. The vacuum is being filled by the United States withdrawing, but also China, I'm sure, could say that they would need some support there. They just killed 3 Chinese individuals in one of the Uzbekistan, I believe. The Chinese are livid over this right now, that this was able to happen against their people as well. So it's not just happening to Americans, it's happening by this terrorist proxy organization that is building their web and getting larger and larger. And I will say that is part of what we prevented by being there, Bev. It wasn't the most perfect. It was absolutely expensive beyond belief. We lost members of the military, intelligence agencies, etc. Was that worth it? No. But the alternative was that we wouldn't have been safe and had no terrorist attacks for the last 20 years.
No. Well, predominantly under Democrat governments in Afghanistan.
It's sort of half and half, you know. You can actually say that it you know, doesn't matter. The government changes and we still go to war. So
okay. Well, so listen, we're staying with that story to some degree, because still to come this evening.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity.
This is what we've just been discussing. This National Guard member, of course, who was shot in a daytime attack in Washington, D.C., remains in a serious condition but showed positive signs, we're hearing today. More details on that developing story next. This is The Late Show, live only on GB News, no breaks. So let's stick with that story. The National Guardsman who was shot and critically injured is now awake and responsive, we are hearing. Andrew Wolf was shot in Washington, D.C. last week, just a few blocks away from the White House. The other member of the West Virginia National Guard who was shot, of course, 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom, sadly lost her life. Meanwhile, new details have emerged about the Afghan man charged with the shooting. The 29-year-old arrived in the US in 2021 during Joe Biden's hasty Afghanistan withdrawal, and it's been revealed that he did not learn English, had been unemployed for the past 5 months, and spent weeks at a time alone in a dark room and suffered manic episodes. Community activists reportedly raised concerns about the individual to a refugee organisation because they feared he was becoming suicidal. Now, moments ago, American President Donald Trump honoured the 2 guards as he hosted the White House Christmas party.
I want to just pay my respects to the National Guard and those 2 incredible people. One is no longer with us. One is looking down and loves her parents. I spoke to her parents the other night, and she's looking down, and she's so proud of her country, and she's so proud of, loved her parents so much, and her parents couldn't believe what happened, could not believe it, what happened to their baby, what happened to their daughter. She's gone. And we have another one who's fighting for his life, as you know, and he's a fabulous young man, highest. Both of them were the best everything, the best of their class.
So speaking now to former New York City Lieutenant and National Guard Mike Gould. Good evening, Mike. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you'll agree with me that's extremely good news that Andrew Wolf is awake and showing signs of improvement. But the details that are emerging about the perpetrator of this awful crime are really disturbing. Now, if this was the UK, one of the first things that people start to say is, was this person known to the authorities? Was he on any mental health authority watch list? Was he on a terrorist watch list? It doesn't feel that those sorts of questions are being asked here in the same way. Is there a cultural difference that I've identified there?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bev. And certainly today's a better day than last Thursday when we lost that young soldier. Regarding, my prediction from the very beginning was this person, this assassin, was suffering from some type of mental illness. I don't think it was an organized terrorist attack per se. It was terrorism, but I don't think it was an organized terrorist attack. And yeah, it's very difficult. Mental illness in the United States, maybe around the world, is up by 30% just in the last decade. So it's almost impossible to vet these people. And so I predicted from the very beginning, based on the weapon that he used, frankly, a 6-shot revolver, I thought that he was kind of a lone wolf, unaffiliated with a formal terrorist group.
Yeah, and what do you make of President Trump's reaction, which is to pause all visas from anybody that was working in Afghanistan anybody that wants to be here from Afghanistan, even those who were working with the American government?
Yeah, so proactive investigation, I think, is warranted. When we talk about vetting people from Afghanistan, it's almost an impossibility. When you're trying to vet, so to speak, people that are living in villages, mountains, there's nothing to vet. There's no criminal histories, there's no records, there's no documents, there's no psychological profiles. So when we look at it, of course, the more we can vet, the better. What I am kind of opposed to is both of our political America, the political system, Republican, Democrat, conservative. Everybody goes off on a tangent and they exploit some of these incidents for their own political agenda. But yeah, of course they should be vetting it. This was a first-degree murder. It was an assassination. Take the politics out of it. Very simple.
And we're hearing these details about the fact that this guy was a worry to people around him, and it seems that none of the alarms which should have gone off did go off. And what kind of questions does that leave America asking itself as this man still suffers in hospital? Yeah, well, it's a mental illness crisis in our country. You just walk down through the streets of Midtown Manhattan and you'll identify people that should be on people's radar, but it's virtually impossible to vet every mentally ill person that looks suspicious, looks crazy. People, you walk around any street, DC, New York City, and you see mental illness, we're surrounded by it. We just walk on the other side of the street when we see it. So it's a very complicated, difficult problem. It's certainly not easy to deal with, regardless of this incident. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you, Mike. Mike Gould there, New York City Lieutenant and National Guard. My panel are still with me. Laurie Watkins and Thomas Corbett-Dillon are still with me this evening. Just to reflect on this, you can't. I was just thinking, Laurie, when he was talking then about how you can't vet people. When you were there welcoming them in, you must have been aware that they could be anyone with any sort of
course. I thought that multiple times for my own safety. We had not everything was perfect, Bev, and I will be the first to say, there were, it's very conservative as far as culture with women. Some have multiple wives. That was an issue that we had to take up and address that I had never dealt with personally before. There was issues within one of the barracks about a gentleman, committing violence against his wife. We quickly remedied that. The person was charged. They were removed from the country, we found out, as they should have been. These kinds of things were addressed if they happened at all. But at a very minimum, I would say there was probably, while I was there, 1 to 2 instances per month that were happening like that, if they happened at all. So yes, it was addressed. You try to do the best that you can. But as I said, this was a very hasty, we all can agree with that, withdrawal that involved multiple agencies working together to try to figure out the background and do the biometrics properly for all of these individuals, so they could, if they were qualified to do so, because not everyone qualified, that they could resettle with those known family members and have a life. We didn't just pluck and drop them in the middle of nowhere with no resources, etc. They had to also prove that they had a support system or they couldn't come into the United States. So there was a lot of different requirements.
I just wonder whether those requirements and having biometric tests would be any sort of comfort to the families of the 2 National Guard members?
No, I think those National Guard members are their families are going to be questioning why this guy was even allowed into the country. And I think those, I wish I'd have been listening to those examples. Those to me sound like great examples of people that should not be in the country. If you were having that, I wonder if we compare it to, say, if 20,000 Europeans were being brought here. How many cases of that do we think we'd have? I don't think you'd have many of them beating their wives in barracks. This seems to be a cultural issue that maybe these people shouldn't necessarily be brought in.
Domestic violence isn't just focused on one culture.
But certainly more prevalent in one culture, particularly where they make the women, multiple wives and cover their faces and things. That's definitely more.
Facts, but okay.
But the very fact that you were saying, the issue of multiple wives was not sort of something that you were used to seeing.
It's not that I wasn't used to seeing it. I've definitely seen it. What I mean is processing and trying to identify children who are assigned or belong to which parent, etc. Coming to a country that by law we do not support that. That's what I meant. How do you navigate that through a system that's entirely different here on the ground in the United States of America and get those people resettled properly that works in their best interest and, of course, in the community that they are assimilating
to. And that, of course, will be why President Trump is saying, right, we should never have done that. And if if I had been in power, that wouldn't have happened. And now we have to stop and work out where we are with people from Afghanistan. Because also, I made this point last week, like, trauma begets trauma, violence begets violence. So the risk that I think so many Western peaceful countries have taken in terms of welcoming refugees and asylum seekers who may have been brutalized themselves or committed atrocities in the eye of a war situation, all these countries have taken a risk because these are not necessarily healthy, psychologically healthy people to welcome into peaceful countries. I'm not disagreeing that we're not taking a risk, and I believe that we should vet every single person. And I was actually grateful that I was one of the people that did their due diligence, was extremely meticulous in the processes that we were following to make sure, if I had anything to do with it, right? Because I can only worry about myself, that you let the right people into this country, but to punish all people and to say we're going to kick them out after them being here for multiple years, and the fact that we had an agreement and told them to come here and paid for them to come here, that I do not agree with. You don't just one bad apple in the barrel spoils the whole bunch. Let's work on creating a new immigration system, comprehensive immigration system, which the House and Senate need to pass, and they have needed to pass for quite some time. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Right. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. It is officially the Christmas season now, which means the festive lights are coming on, but who won this year's Christmas lights battle? Was it number 10 Downing Street or the White House? Have your say. Let me know. Oh, so beautiful. Look at that. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Now, although today will be a drier day, there's still a fair few blustery showers on the way for many western areas. Some sunshine in between, and we've got off to a pretty bright start across the east, and there will be more sunshine on the way for many eastern areas. Further west, though, you can see a plethora of showers moving in from the Atlantic. Some of these will really pack a punch, bringing a risk of hail and thunder, particularly to the south and west. But notice some very heavy showers across the northwest too. Now, temperatures are a degree or so cooler than yesterday, but it will feel that much more pleasant, particularly in any sheltered sunshine across the east. Now, the winds will be quite strong, particularly across northwestern areas close to this small area of low pressure. So that brings an unsettled evening to parts of the Highlands and the Western Isles in particular, where we'll continue to see these showers moving in through this evening. Eastern areas of Scotland, the central belt, seeing plenty of dry weather, some clearer skies developing through this evening, as well as across Northern Ireland. The temperatures will start to fall away. Still quite a lot of cloud around for many central and southern areas of England and Wales, and a number of showers still yet to move through on Tuesday evening. They could come further inland across eastern areas for a time, but overnight tonight it will become clearer and drier for many areas. There will still be a number of showers, particularly across coastal areas, western coasts of the UK. So here there'll be more cloud, will be frost free, but inland sheltered areas could see a touch of frost defrost by Wednesday morning, so a cooler start to the day on Wednesday than today, but more in the way of sunshine to come. A fairly settled day actually for eastern areas. A very different story though for northern Scotland, where this rain will turn to snow over the highest ground. Further south, a mixture of sunshine and showers, particularly across the west, but more in the way of drier weather to come on Wednesday compared to today. And as a result, temperatures will climb to the double digits, 10 or 11 degrees across southwestern areas. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I am Bev Turner. Thank you very much for joining me. So let's have a look at some of the front pages of the newspapers. The Daily Mail is leading with the fall guy for Reeves's budget lies. This is the OBR chief, the Office for Budget Responsibility. Obviously, they released their findings before her budget, basically exposing the budget as being incorrect, which is very embarrassing for Rachel Reeves about this black hole. Was it really 22 billion or not? He has resigned, and some are saying actually he's had to go because frankly somebody had to, so he was the one that did. It's actually very unusual for anybody to lose their job in public life these days. I'm not pleased for him obviously, but anyway. Metro, striker clashes with right-winger. This is a funny story. This is Tommy Robinson, who exposed Gary Lineker for being on a trip to Thailand. There was a picture which appeared to show Gary Lineker walking down the road with a young Asian woman, and speculation about what was going on there, Gary. Well, it turns out it was his daughter-in-law. So he was doing absolutely nothing wrong, but it's put these two head to head. I almost wonder, Thomas, whether this is just so that the Metro could write striker clashes with right winger. It's brilliant.
And get a nice artist to draw some cool pictures.
I know. Well, AI's done that.
Oh,
Come on, let's be honest. Right, the front page of the Times is also leading on this pressure that Rachel Reeves finds herself under. OBR boss quits after PM's budget leak rebuke. Rebuke is an interesting word to put in a headline, isn't it? The Mirror. They're leading with justice for the lost victims. Now, that is about the post office scandal. Apparently, the police are considering corporate manslaughter charges over the deaths of sub-postmasters who took their own lives in the stress of that ridiculous Horizon scandal, the technology failure, which saw some of them sent to prison, being accused of stealing. The Daily Express is saying now the Prime Minister admits to seeking closer links to the EU. That doesn't seem to surprise any of us, I don't think. And we might go to London, but I don't think he's quite ready yet. So let's move on to our next story. Okay, Benjamin Butterworth is there in London now. Benjamin, it's 1:30 in the morning. I wish we'd got to you before now. I'm sorry about that. What would you like to talk about, Benjamin? Which story has caught your eye?
Well, the main one is Rachel Reeves and the boss of this Office for Budget Responsibility, because there have been claims that she lied about the scale of the black hole for which she justified raising taxes. And now the guy that's in charge of that, Richard Hughes, has been sacked. Now, later on today, he was due to be questioned by MPs on the Treasury Select Committee. And so some people are raising the question of, did he go a day before that so that he couldn't reveal more? There you see the Daily Mail front page, which refers to budget lies. It doesn't put lies in inverted quote marks. It just calls them out, which is quite bold of the papers to do. So that's dominating most of the newspapers. And then there's also the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, saying categorically that they didn't mislead anybody over the size of the black hole that justifies those tax rises.
I just said, Benjamin, it's actually really nice for once to see somebody resign, because we live in an age of this accountability deficit. Nobody ever loses their jobs anymore. It doesn't matter what they've done, pretty much, in my opinion, from the time of Boris Johnson onwards. It doesn't matter how despicably you behave. You don't actually lose your job. I don't think Rachel Reeves will go. I don't think Starmer will go over this. Do you? Do you think it will all just die down eventually?
Well, I think half of that's true. I don't think it will die down because people are now out for blood when it comes to this. Labour MPs are very angry. You're seeing a bit like under Boris Johnson. Ministers are having to go on TV programmes and defend things that turn out not to be quite right hours later, and they end up looking like fools when it's not their fault. And that causes big problems. I know many people in the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Party, who are now moving, having meetings to try and get rid of Keir Starmer. I think the question is when rather than if at this stage. I don't think it'll be in the coming days or weeks, but I would be very surprised if there wasn't a move by May next year.
Really? Well, that seems like quite a long way away. Benjamin, I can't lie. I'm not sure we can hang on till May, can we? And who would step into his shoes? Who would that be?
Well, I mean, I was speaking to insiders the other day who said to me, you'd be surprised just how organised the crowning of Wes Streeting is. There's a suggestion that quite senior people in the party that are on the centre-left, not even the sort of Blairite wing, which is where Wes Streeting comes from, they are backing his campaign to be the successor. They fear that if there were a competition and it went to Labour Party members, that someone like Angela Rayner or from the left of the Parliamentary Party would win. And so they're trying to organise to avoid that. But timing will be everything. And I just suspect there will be more stories like this about Starmer and Reeves, and one of them will be the tipping point, just like Boris Johnson, who eventually went for a relatively minor incrimination, but there'd been so many complaints before it that it was a matter of time.
OK, thank you, Benjamin. Now, stay with us. I'm going to bring you in as much as we can between now and the end of the show, because it is officially Christmas, apparently. 1st of December. No, I'm not ready, not remotely ready. Won't be ready till about Christmas Eve. But Downing Street has turned on the Christmas lights. Here we go.
3, 2, 1. Go, Samuel.
All notice what I noticed there. The lights actually came on before little Sam there had actually hit the button. Did you notice that, Thomas?
I did notice
Yeah, I mean, I can see what they were trying to do, but as usual, it didn't quite land, did it? Well, that was community hero Sam. He got given the honour of pressing the button while the Prime Minister hosted a Christmas market-style showcase. And last year was so awful and so flat and so disastrous that they actually had this choir that was ready to burst into song. And it was actually quite nice. I quite liked the way we did it, but it was a little bit low rent, wasn't it? Look at them there in their antler dealy boppers. Well, back here in America, First Lady Melania Trump has unveiled the White House's Christmas decorations. The theme this year is Home is Where the Heart Is, and it includes 75 wreaths, more than 50 Christmas trees and 25,000 foot of ribbon. And just look how beautiful it is. I mean, this woman does style and sophistication like nobody else. These are so beautiful. This has got Georgia was the name on there.
Different states.
Different states.
She's got a bauble, yeah.
So she worked with I think it was a French designer. I don't know what you might know. And it's fostering the future. And the baubles have got the logo "Be Best," which would never happen in the UK.
That's
You're not encouraged.
Charity. That's
is that the name of the? Is that the fostering charity?
She says "Be Best." It's like anti-bullying and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like it. And it's called a season. They've called it a season of peace and light. And this is a gingerbread house that we're looking at there. Absolutely stunning. They've got the nativity scene as well, of course. They don't shy away from the fact that Christmas is actually a Christian festival like we do in the UK, where we call it a winter festival or something. Does it make you proud to be American, Laurie Watkins, when you see that?
Thank you for using my full name. Yes, I miss going over to the White House for the Christmas parties and seeing what's now torn down, but seeing that part of the White House that was all decorated, you know, it was always lovely. Nice time to be at.
Thomas, it's just, I mean, look, this part of me likes our sort of slightly pound shop Christmas that we do at Downing Street, because you know what would happen if in England we had anything like that extravagance? Everyone would be raging about taxpayers' money being spent.
Right, they definitely don't release how much the First Lady spends on that, which of course in the UK the newspapers would be all over what the budget was. But it does put us to shame a little bit, and I think it seems to be the one that gets all the attention here is the tree in Trafalgar Square that always seems to look a little bit rubbish. So the Americans always share that one, but actually that's not really, I think that's the London one or something. It's not really the official one. So, but that one it always puts us to shame. But the Rockefeller one it's going to be the big. But I found out the Rockefeller one, they actually add branches to it. It's all like glued together to make it look so good. Meanwhile, we just put a tree up and that's it. So
yeah, well, I mean, I thought actually at least this year was better than last year. Last year they did a 3, 2, 1, and then he pressed the thing, and it was just awful, and it was just so cringy, and it was just so cringy. And he's very awkward, isn't he?
He is.
He doesn't look comfortable. Like even when the choir was singing there, he sort of stood there and.
I saw him falling over the other day and doing his 6-7 and all this. It's just strange, man.
Now, talking about, let's move on to somebody who is not awkward. This is male model David Gandy, who has roasted Daddy Pig for promoting a bad narrative about men. So let's have a look at Pepper's dad in action.
1, 2, 3, whoopla!
See, Daddy Pig gets everything wrong, and they always say "silly Daddy Pig" on the group. And you know, you look around, Laurie, for good male role models, and they are hard to find.
They are, and I'm so glad that an individual called out these kinds of shows, because I have little nieces and they watch shows like, you know, Bluey, and the messaging and some of that when I'm overhearing or watching it, I think is absolutely excellent. But to paint females or males in a disparaging way, but especially males, that the fathers are inept. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, Thomas and Leo, Ben and I, that we should be painting them in a better way that shows them as good partners to the mother, or it could be another father. So that example is set for the kids, that they see that it's a partnership, and that less gender roles of, the mom doesn't only cook and clean, etc., and the father only does these things, that we can show just true partnership. And by making fun of men constantly, that's showing not only little boys but little girls that that's their role. And I don't think that that's the light that we want to paint them. We want them to get out of those boxes.
I want to speak to Benjamin Butterworth about this as well. Benjamin, I mean, it might be a bit of a stretch to say that Daddy Pig is the reason that we have people like Andrew Tate, but there is a through line in this debate about cultural icons. In the absence of really great, strong male role models, we end up having men move into that space who you wouldn't necessarily want your boys to grow up to be.
Yeah, I didn't quite think I'd be talking about David Gandy and Daddy Pig on the news. It's a surprise in itself. But I think he makes quite a good point. And he is someone who is, you know, famous, a self-made entrepreneur, a businessman, very financially secure, married to a barrister. So he's clearly a great role model as well as a model. And so calling out the idea that, you know, kids' TV shows, kids' books, they absorb so much at that age. It shapes their ideas of the world in the first place. So the fact that you've got a sort of useless, vaguely lazy, hapless husband in the case of Daddy Pig, I think that just tells boys and girls that they're gonna grow up to act like that, and that's not healthy for anybody.
No, I mean, my most disappointing aspect of this whole item is that we haven't shown any more pictures of David Gandy, which frankly is a loss. But I'm sure you join me in that feeling, Benjamin. And maybe you too, Thomas. And maybe you too, Laurie. I don't know, we're all, but yeah, can we get more float of David Gandy, please? She says being a little bit sexist. But isn't that, the problem is that when it comes to masculinity, Thomas, we either end up going super woke, and you know, as Laurie sort of said, that you make two daddies. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much for showing pictures of David Gandy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, quite. I'm glad you appreciate that, Laurie. But you either end up being so super woke, and you've got like two daddies who are a little bit, you know, soy boys, and not a true masculinity. So, and then you've got the you know, or you get the super aggressive, slightly stupid men on social media. Where do you find a good male role model, Thomas? Can you think of anybody?
Well, first of all, it's not fair to cut from that back to Benjamin and I, but you know, I think this story is crazy, because when did kids shows start pushing an agenda? This is, for me, confusing, and I've seen this trend now that people are starting to show their kids old cartoons. They're watching Winnie the Pooh and Thomas the Tank Engines. They never had an agenda. Those sorts of shows that we grew up with, Postman Pat, Fireman Sam, great shows. I don't think they were pushing an agenda. So, you know, do all these kids shows, particularly the American ones, they love to push an agenda.
Yeah, but I suppose the Rights of Peppered Pig would say we're not pushing an agenda. All we're doing is depicting a typical family, and maybe there are too many families, Ben, where like the dads,
equality in all roles,
and the dads are sometimes a bit rubbish and do throw the pancakes on the roof. Maybe it's just accurate.
I mean, I'd like to think that in this day and age, most middle-aged men with kids are doing a slightly better job than not knowing how to fry an egg. But actually, I think Thomas is wrong because kids' books and films have long had strong moral messages. I mean, I'm just off the top of my head thinking of Mary Poppins, in which you have the overworked dad who doesn't care about his family, and then she comes in as the sort of strong matriarchal figure and teaches them a lesson about life. That probably shaped lots of people's ideas about what's good and moral and healthy in a family. So I don't think it's a new thing. I think the question is whether they're good role models or bad ones.
Although, of course, what I've always noticed about Mary Poppins is that the mother is out with a placard. Do you remember? She was a proper kind of suffragette feminist, and it was almost
she checked out. She was done.
The implication was almost, you know, she should have been at home looking after the kids, not out trying to fight for women to get the vote. So maybe these things have always been political. We just hadn't really thought about it. I can't think of, when I start to think of good male role models, who would I want my boy to look at? You know what? I can only think of somebody like maybe Bear Grylls is pretty good, but again, that's not for everybody. Like, I'm guessing you didn't grow up aspiring to be like Bear Grylls, Benjamin Butterworth.
Do you know, that's, I mean, not literally him, but I love scouts, and I go on lots of quite dangerous adventure holidays, so I would gladly be Bear Grylls. But I do think it's a massive problem, and actually, when you look at issues that boys and men have, they will often talk about the lack of male role models, of people to aspire to. We have a problem that a considerable majority now of our teachers are female. A great thing is that far more girls are going to university and being highly educated, but there's a massive problem with white working class boys failing at school because they don't have those role models. And so I think it's, you know, it's not just Daddy Pig, it's actually quite a serious problem.
And we've given such mixed messages to this generation of boys. You must show your feelings, you must talk about how you feel. Great. But then also inside them is all of that testosterone that just wants to go out and smash things up and beat each other up. And we've completely failed to manage biology next to modern day psychology, you might say. I think it's a real problem. Right, should we move on? Because I love this story. The White House has slammed the fake news media. Caroline Levitt was talking today at the briefing about what the White House is doing to proactively clamp down on what they see as fake news. Have a look.
And I think it goes to our original promise on day one to hold the media accountable, because unfortunately, and we deal with this all day, every day around here, there are so many fake stories that are unfortunately written that have inaccurate characterizations of meetings that took place, and it's all based on anonymous sourcing. And, you know, the standard for journalism, unfortunately, has dropped to such a historic low in this country. And I will point out one fake news story over the weekend before I let you all go, from the New York Times, that took about 1/3 of the president's daily calendar and his daily schedule and said that he's doing less than he did in his first term, or he might not be fit for the job. That is unequivocally false, and it's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this: Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history. He is taking meetings around the clock. Another one. Biden declared, quote, healthy and vigorous after his first presidential physical. I don't see headlines like that too often about this president.
So that was Caroline Levitt talking today, absolutely just going like she does, completely honest with the press pack there. Now, so this is phenomenal. So the White House have basically now set up a public database cataloguing what they say are manufactured news headlines, and then they will highlight the offending journalists, and then they will put the actual facts that they say that this journalist has twisted. Benjamin, what do you make of this story? It really is taking on the issue of the depiction of President Trump particularly, isn't it?
I mean, I find it pretty uncomfortable. I'm sure there's not a government in history that hasn't been frustrated by inaccurate stories of one type or the other. But governments shouldn't hold the media accountable. It should be the other way round. And I do think that, you know, Donald Trump has a pretty loose relationship with the truth. This is the guy that in his first term talked about alternative facts. I would definitely find it uncomfortable. The idea that they go after individual journalists, which is essentially trying to bully them into changing the stories they tell, I think that's quite sinister, actually.
Thomas?
Well, but there's, as you see on this website, there are so many cases where they twist words. They take a story, and this website is great because they compare, for example, this recent health story, what they said about Biden versus what they're saying about the president today. They twist it to fit their agenda. And the fact is that these journalists work at outlets where they cannot publish the truth because they are owned by corporations that have an agenda to push.
Laurie, I think it will be interesting, at the very least, for people who have an open mind to look at what the White House thinks that other journalists are getting wrong. Will you be reading it?
Well, this fact that this Trump administration is coming up with standards for the media is laughable to me, but there's already websites out there that do fact-checking against this administration and all of the mistruths and lies and misinformation that they peddle out there. Benjamin was starting to talk about that himself, that he can see that over in the UK. So fine, they can have their own website. Unfortunately, it's the American people's website because it belongs to the White House.
Well, I'd say those some of those fact-checking websites are also funded by some rather partisan sources. Benjamin Butterworth, great to see you. Thank you for joining us, and Laurie Watkins as well. Great to see you, Laurie. Thank you for putting up such a good fight this evening. And Thomas Corbett-Dillon as well. Thank you very much. I will be back tomorrow evening, and you can join me on Thursday, where we will see the actual Christmas lights of the White House being turned on as well, if you want a little bit more of that. I'll see you tomorrow.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Now, although today will be a drier day, there's still a fair few blustery showers on the way for many western areas. Some sunshine in between, and we've got off to a pretty bright start across the east, and there will be more sunshine on the way for many eastern areas. Further west, though, you can see a plethora of showers moving in from the Atlantic. Some of these will really pack a punch, bringing a risk of hail and thunder, particularly to the south and west. But notice some very heavy showers across the northwest too. Now, temperatures are a degree or so cooler than yesterday, but it will feel that much more pleasant, particularly in any sheltered sunshine across the east. Now, the winds will be quite strong, particularly across northwestern areas close to this small area of low pressure. So that brings an unsettled evening to parts of the Highlands and the Western Isles in particular, where we'll continue to see these showers moving in through this evening. Eastern areas of Scotland, the central belt, seeing plenty of dry weather, some clearer skies developing through this evening, as well as across Northern Ireland. The temperatures will start to fall away. Still quite a lot of cloud around for many central and southern areas of England and Wales, and a number of showers still yet to move through on Tuesday evening. They could come further inland across eastern areas for a time, but overnight tonight it will become clearer and drier for many areas. There will still be a number of showers, particularly across coastal areas, western coasts of the UK. So here there'll be more cloud, will be frost free, but inland sheltered areas could see a touch of frost by Wednesday morning. So a cooler start to the day on Wednesday than today, but more in the way of sunshine to come. A fairly settled day actually for eastern areas. A very different story though for northern Scotland, where this rain will turn to snow over the highest ground. Further south, a mixture of sunshine and showers, particularly across the west, but more in the way of drier weather to come on Wednesday compared to today. And as a result, temperatures will climb to the double digits, 10 or 11 degrees across southwestern areas. See you soon.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Coming up on tonight's show.
The budget was a moment of personal pride for me.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer faces a cabinet rebellion over allegations that he and the Chancellor misled them over a fiscal black hole. He's defended his Chancellor today and said that the budget was a moment of personal pride. And meanwhile,
economic growth is beating the forecasts, and that is good for growth. And that's why our choices were fair, they were necessary, and they were fundamentally good for growth.
Sir Keir Starmer has also insisted that this budget will help secure long-term growth for the country. But I'll be joined by an entrepreneur who is warning it will devastate the economy. And
David Lammy is ripping up this ancient part of our constitution.
This David Lammy is set to scrap jury trials except for the most extreme crimes. New reports suggested this will threaten freedom of speech. And finally,
we've started strongly with record deportations and removals, up to 50,000 now.
Is the Home Office guilty of spreading misinformation about deportations? We'll be crunching the numbers as the government claims 50,000 illegal immigrants have been removed since they took office. But what's the truth? All of that's to come. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Martin, thank you. Very good evening. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are your top stories. Office for Budget Responsibility Chairman Richard Hughes has resigned. In a letter sent to Rachel Reeves and the chair of the Treasurer Select Committee, Hughes says that he wants to ensure that the OBR gets the chance to quickly move on from this regrettable incident. It comes after the OBR this afternoon published a report urging an immediate change to its leadership after it mistakenly released an analysis of the budget early. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused the Chancellor of using Mr Hughes as a human shield and has called on Rachel Reeves to resign.
Fact is, this is now turned into a political crisis for the Prime Minister and his Chancellor. This is a classic example of do as I say, not do as I do.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is pressing ahead with a major welfare reform drive, arguing that the current system is trapping young people outside the workforce and holding back economic growth. He says that the budget was a moment of personal pride.